Remain high between Canada and India. Court injunction aims to prevent confrontations between protesters and Indian consulate officials at an annual consular camp in Vancouver. And
ultimately, this is about justice for my daughters, Samantha and Brooklyn.
Why a new BC coroner's report is giving a Vancouver Island mom some validation after years of fighting for answers and accountability in her daughter's death. Also,
they are reaching the end of their service lifespan, and they're eventually, over the next couple of years, going to be replaced.
What would you do with a vintage SkyTrain car? TransLink is looking for ideas on how best to repurpose its original fleet. Hello, I'm Janella Hamilton. Thanks for joining us. Dozens of pro-Khalistan supporters gathered outside the province's largest Sikh temple today to protest the presence of Indian consulate officials at the gurdwara. As Saurabh Sandhu reports, it comes after BC's highest court ordered a buffer zone around the temple in anticipation of expected confrontations between protesters and officials.
Inside the Ross Street Gurdwara, seniors line up to get their life certificates made by Indian consulate officials. It's part of an annual consular camp organized by the Khalsa Diwan Society.
The only services that are being offered today are life certificates, which is for individuals who are collecting pension in India, and annually they have to get a certificate done that they're alive and living here.
But it's a different picture outside the temple walls, where dozens of supporters of the Khalistan movement are being held back by police. Protesters not allowed within 60 meters of the Gurdwara, as outlined in a recent court ruling. At one point, some protesters tried to get inside the Gurdwara, but were quickly escorted away by police, while others used a PA system to yell at people as they entered the temple.
But we got to stop. We will stop these homes.
Gurdwara officials say last year the VPD had a decoy plan to escort the consulate staff out of the Gurdwara, and to convince the protesters that the consulate staff had left, they had to take them inside the Gurdwara. Officials say this year they did not want to go through the same ordeal. That's why they pursued this court injunction.
Last year, the protesters caused a lot of disturbance. Open threats were openly made to the members of the executive, individuals who were seeking life certificates.
Saturday's protest comes amid heightened tensions between Canada and India after Ottawa expelled 6 Indian diplomats for their alleged involvement in criminal activity. Mounties have also linked India's government to last year's killing of prominent Sikh separatist Hardeep Singh Nijjar, all of which India denies.
We want to make the people clear that people are not Sikh, they are the puppet of Indian government to assassinate our leaders and play the dirty role.
You have your issues to sort out, there's a different place to do it. But today it's an opportunity for those seniors to get a service done, and they should not be intimidated or targeted.
Sanghera estimates about 400 people used the consular service on Saturday. A second camp is set for November 16th. The court order covers both events. Saurabh Sandhu, CBC News, Vancouver.
Meanwhile, testimony from this week's foreign interference hearings elicited a protest today from India. The testimony surrounded the RCMP allegations of high-ranking Indian officials authorizing attacks in Canada, and it identified an Indian cabinet minister.
Government of India protests in the strongest terms to the absurd.
Speaking today at an Indian government spokesperson called the story baseless and absurd. The man at the center of it is Amit Shah, a close cabinet ally of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. The testimony confirming RCMP's suspicions around him came from Canada's Deputy Foreign Minister. In BC's West Kootenay region, inland ferry workers are expected to start strike action tomorrow after weeks of negotiations between the workers' union and its employers have broken down. And as Corey Bullock reports, the ongoing standstill is taking a toll on residents who rely on the service.
For West Kootenay residents like Megan Rogby-Thomas, the past few weeks have been exhausting.
Everyone says they want to do this with the least impact on our community. But I'll tell you right now, this is impacting our community and communities on both sides of the lake, and even farther, huge already, even though we haven't missed a sailing yet.
The tension comes as the employer, Western Pacific Marine, and the BC General Employees Union are still unable to reach a deal after weeks of negotiations. The union says its members who operate inland ferries want better compensation, training support, and scheduling adjustments.
Our members live in the communities. They also know how vital these services are. And they're exhausted, and they're feeling that this what's been happening is just not sustainable.
Western Pacific Marine says it has offered multiple proposals and that the negotiations are a necessary part of the process.
To simply say that it's very easy to have a magic wand and to agree to all the demands is not it's not responsible for either party to do.
There are several ferries in the region, and Western Pacific Marine operates the Kootenay Lake Ferry, as well as 2 nearby cable ferries. Hundreds rely on the service for everything from work and school to medical appointments.
We're right now trying to figure out what our employees who live on the other side of the lake are going to do. Will they be able to actually come to work? We rely on them very much.
Union members plan to strike Sunday at noon. The ferries running between Balfour and Kootenay Bay will be reduced to just 3 sailings per day for essential travel only. Some of those essential services include students and healthcare workers. Emergencies will still be able to cross, and the 2 cable ferries won't be affected. And in the meantime, both parties are hoping that a deal can be reached.
We're not far off. There's just a couple of things that we still need to iron out to ensure that our members are closer to a deal that is fair.
We can completely empathize with the community. We're frustrated. I'm sure the union and the membership are frustrated. We'd love to get to an agreement, and it has to work for all parties. And I'm confident we're going to get there.
And while negotiations continue, residents like Rokeby Thomas are planning to protest.
The community is not going to sit down and just be quiet and take this, because we can't. It's our road. It really is our road.
Negotiations are expected to continue over the coming weeks, but residents are being warned that it won't be an easy road ahead. Corey Bullock, CBC News, Cranbrook.
Parents are being reminded to check their children's Halloween treats after a razor blade and a needle were found in candy in 2 different cities. Kamloops RCMP say a resident reported finding a razor blade inserted into a piece of their child's candy after trick-or-treating in the Brock area on Thursday. Meanwhile, in Kelowna, a sewing needle was found in a small chewing candy after the family had been out in the Neller Road and Hine Road area. Investigators in both cities say it's not clear where the candies came from and that they did not receive similar reports. 3.5 years after her daughter's death, a Vancouver Island mother says she's received the validation she's long awaited. The BC Coroner Service has now reclassified the death of 18-year-old Samantha Sims Somerville from an accidental overdose to a homicide. But as Shoria Chethri reports, police say it's too early to determine if the case will be reopened.
She was an avid dancer, poet, writer, singer.
Tracy Sims remembers her daughter Samantha Sims Somerville as a gentle and kind person. At just 18 years old, Samantha died in April 2021 after attending a social gathering at an apartment in Victoria.
Her last photo was actually taken at 10:30 p.m. on the bus, looking bright and cheerful, with straight hair and smiling, looking sober.
Hours later, both Samantha and a friend were rushed to the hospital. While a friend recovered, Samantha did not. The case was closed a year later, citing accidental overdose as the cause of death.
She didn't have any drug history, any history of drug abuse.
But new findings from the BC Coroner Service now reveal that Samantha and her friend were intentionally given GHB, a date rape drug mixed with alcohol, something Sims says she suspected all along.
I watched my daughter die in front of me, and if anyone is a parent, to sit and watch a child die and feel so helpless is the most traumatizing thing.
For Sims, the pursuit for justice began the moment she saw her daughter in the hospital. Driven by her belief that her daughter's death was no accident, she started doing her own investigation.
I had no choice. I was a desperate mother that needed answers for her child.
Sims strongly believes the initial police investigation wasn't handled adequately. Her growing frustrations prompted her to file a complaint against some of the officers involved in the case. The Office of the Police Complaint Commissioner is currently investigating. In a statement, Victoria Police say they submitted all relevant information from Sims' findings to Crown Counsel, who ultimately chose not to pursue charges. Police say it is too early to determine whether there will be any further action on this file. Sims says she will continue to fight for justice until she sees criminal charges laid against those involved in her daughter's death.
Ultimately, this is about justice for my daughters, Samantha and Brooklyn, and many others as well.
Shaurya Chetri, CBC News, Vancouver.
Residents in Metro Vancouver are set to pay almost 10% more for all regional services starting next year. Regional services include drinking water, sewage, waste management, parks and air quality management, among other taxes and fees. The budget, which was approved on Friday, will see most households pay on average $875 each year. Metro says the increase is aimed at addressing what the regional district calls necessary to catch up on deferred infrastructure expenses. TransLink is asking for your help to come up with ways to relocate and repurpose Metro Vancouver's original SkyTrain fleet. So I hopped aboard to get people's thoughts. This is the Mark I, TransLink's oldest SkyTrain cars. But soon it will be the end of the line for 150 iconic cars just like this.
They are reaching the end of their service lifespan, and they're eventually, over the next couple of years, going to be replaced by Mark V SkyTrain cars. So we are trying to come up with a retirement plan for these cars, and that's why we need people's help on it.
How would you like to see these Mark I SkyTrain cars repurposed?
Maybe some sort of, like, I've seen the old decommissioned dining cars become a thing. Housing is always a necessity in the city.
I was actually thinking sending to maybe other countries that are not so fortunate, you know, like they may like to have to keep using.
I think a museum is probably just perfectly fine. Definitely the history of these old cars is something that I would be pretty interested in, I think.
What about turning it into a food truck-styled restaurant? Maybe a dance club? Or a wedding venue?
Historically, cities all over the world have repurposed their old vehicles and various fleets. They can be turned into community displays, used in playgrounds, art installations. They can be set up in museums and even turned into artificial reefs.
Since they were introduced during Expo 86, the Mark I SkyTrain cars have been used by millions of transit riders for nearly 40 years. But TransLink says by 2027, the SkyTrain's original fleet will be replaced by the brand new Mark V cars. TransLink is hoping community organizations, developers, municipal governments, and people can come up with creative uses for at least some of the cars as legacy projects to commemorate their historical use on Metro Vancouver's rapid transit network. Hundreds of kids were at Science World today for the 7th annual Girls and STEAM Summit. The event aims to get more girls and women interested in careers where they're typically underrepresented. Stephanie Mercier reports.
We turn the microscope on. Microscope on, slide in, focus, and learn. This workshop is one of several happening at Vancouver's Science World as part of the Girls in STEAM Summit, an annual gathering to inspire young people to consider careers in science, technology, engineering, arts and design, and math.
I learned how to find different blood types.
I like buildings and how to build them and structures and how to support them.
300 girls ages 12 to 14 are here checking out the workshops and showcases.
Everything from building a parachute to stop your egg from cracking through to LiDAR scans and earthquake testing as well. So it's a really fun day.
Fun and hopefully inspirational. Organizers say women still make up just under a quarter of entrants into STEM bachelor programs in Canada. Events like this are trying to change that.
I'm excited to encourage them within my speech to reach beyond what they may believe they're capable of currently. I want to expand their world and encourage them to get into fields that they might have not thought about.
I'm Maranke Harris. I am a deep sea explorer and oceanographer.
The keynote speaker says getting more girls and women involved means new ideas.
We're losing out on a lot of innovation by not having as many diverse perspectives entering these fields, because diverse perspectives are what breed innovation.
And the path to innovation can come from an experience.
I think that everyone should get to experience something like this once in their life because it's just so eye-opening, and here's where I really learned my passion for biology and medicine.
That's a very cool prediction. Anybody else got anything for me? Yeah.
This year's theme is Future Forward. These kids are thinking about just that.
I would like to be a pediatrician and possibly a neurologist, like a neuropediatrician.
Something in like the science area, like designing buildings maybe, architecture.
These girls steaming ahead to their own bright futures. Stephanie Mercier, CBC News, Vancouver.
It's that time of year again. At 2 a.m. tomorrow morning, the clock falls back 1 hour, giving British Columbians an extra hour of sleep. And while the health effects of the time change on humans has been well documented, the BC SPCA is reminding people it can also be stressful for pets.
For those animals that are sensitive, or are they maybe more vocal? Are they pacing, panting? Do they, are they at you trying to like, oh, can you play with me? They're wanting attention. It can give you a signal that, oh, maybe they're out of sorts.
So what can you do to make the transition easier for your furry friends? The SPCA suggests making sure your pet follows your sleep routine in the days after the time switch. It's the final stretch for Donald Trump and Kamala Harris as both candidates hit the swing states in what the polls say is a statistical tie. All the latest on the U.S. presidential election campaign coming up. It's the final weekend of the U.S. election campaign, and the candidates are making last-minute pitches to votes in crucial swing states.
So just imagine, if he is elected on day one, Donald Trump would walk in that Oval Office with his enemies list.
I will end inflation. I will stop the invasion of massive numbers of criminals that have come into our country. And America will be bigger, better, bolder, richer, safer, and stronger than ever before.
Both Kamala Harris and Donald Trump made several campaign stops today, visiting states like North Carolina, Georgia, and Virginia. Polls suggest a tight race in several key battlegrounds, with Tuesday's election still a toss-up between the two. More than 71 million Americans have already voted in advanced polling. In their first playoff game at home since 2021, the Saskatchewan Roughriders defeated the BC Lions 28-19 in the West Division semifinal earlier today.
Needs some chunk plays. First bit of a miracle.
The Riders sealed the victory with interceptions on consecutive BC possessions. Safety Nelson Lacombo grabbed his first CFL interception with 4 minutes remaining, and defensive back Roland Milligan Jr. slammed the door with a pick in the Saskatchewan end zone with 47 seconds left in the game. A 17-yard field goal by Sean White 1 minute into the fourth quarter had cut the Riders' lead to 20-19. Here we have a live shot of Canby Street tonight. I'll have your full forecast coming up next. All right, it is time now to take a look at our full forecast. Let's begin with a special weather statement in effect for Metro Vancouver due to heavy rain on the way. The rain will start tomorrow night and will be heaviest overnight into Monday, easing off around midday. Those on the north coast could see 40 to 80 millimeters in under 12 hours. And moving into tonight's quick peek at the forecast tonight, -7 in Dees Lake with some snow flurries, a mix of snow and rain in Terrace with a low of 3 tonight, 0 in Kamloops, and 6 on the island with a little precipitation in Victoria. Moving into tomorrow, sun and clouds with a high of 1 for Dees Lake, 5 in Fort St. John, snow in Prince George with a high of 5 for tomorrow, and on the island, sunny and cloudy with a high of 11 in Victoria, but Tofino, you're going to see some of those scattered showers. And in Metro Vancouver, as I mentioned, there is a rain warning in effect. Sunday, we're going to see some of that scattered showers until later that night when it really picks up with a high of 10 for tomorrow. And Monday, we are going to see similar conditions with a high of 13. The Parade of Lost Souls moved to Trout Lake for this year's celebration. The annual event celebrates life and honors death through all kinds of performances, art installations, traditional food, and more. Take a look.
Parade of Lost Souls is a place for your own inspiration. It's a place to try new things and be something different for one night.
We're waterproof in here, and we figured it would be fun to come out and be wet with everybody. Totoro, the anime character, so we decided to make him into a skeleton version of him for the occasion.
It's a phenomenon in East Vancouver. It started here over 30 years ago. We, the Dusty Flower Pot, are continuing the flame. Since 2010, we started onboarding our production with them, and we're doing it strong. And even though it's raining, it can't rain on this parade. Lots of people out here.
I'm having a bad day.
Adults really love Halloween just as much as kids do, and they want to dress up just as much as kids do, and they want treats even though it's not candy anymore. So I think that this is an all-ages Halloween event where everyone gets as excited as everyone else, like kids, adults alike. You look around here, everyone's dressed up, everyone's having a great time. People come with new ideas every year. Yeah, I think that's the special part about it.
Such a colorful and cool event. That is your late news for Saturday, November 2nd. Thanks so much for watching. For news on the go at any hour, you can always head to our website at cbc.ca/bc. We'll see you tomorrow.